Okay, fantastic. So hello everyone. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Mattia. If you haven't already met me, I am the president of Maxert. But today's presentation will be done by Maya, who is a Chem Eng grad student here at Mac. Before we get started, I'm just going to share a couple slides with information for all of you regarding the upcoming Research Poster Showcase and some of the events that we have planned for the next few weeks leading up to that showcase, just so you have, and then I will give the floor over to Maya. So I'm just going to share my screen quickly here. Okay, can everyone see my screen? Yeah, we're good. Okay, fantastic. So again, welcome to Maxert. If you haven't come out to any of our events and this is your first one, thank you for joining us. What Maxert does is provide resources for our research students here at Mac, specifically undergraduate research students. We run different socials, events, info sessions. We provide resources on our Instagram, our Facebook, YouTube channel, email, whatever you can think of. We have information there for our students, and we kind of just provide support if students have any questions about their positions, different ways to get involved, and other opportunities that are available within the faculty. So who am I? Again, I'm Mattia. I'm going into my third year of chemical and biomedical engineering. I'm the president of Maxer. I'm not doing a research term this summer, but last summer I worked in the Department of Engineering Physics with Dr. Fong, and I was vice president last year. So I just love Maxer. I love the work that we do, and I love the research community at Max. So I'm very happy to be presenting to all of you today. Again, Maxer, we run events, we have resources, we run info sessions. Our biggest one of the year is our summer poster showcase that happens in August, which all of you will be attending, obviously. There are a lot of you this year. We have 70 registrants last time I checked for our research poster showcase, so we will be dividing up that day. More info will be coming in the next few weeks, but just be aware that that will be happening. We also have our socials. We're having one again this week. And we have our fall research fair, which is another big event that we run. Okay, printing. You know what? Looking back on it, I'm going to save this for later. I'm going to let Maya do her presentation, and then we're going to get into printing because it's a lot of boring details that will make more sense once she speaks a little bit. So I'm going to leave that for later. But for now, I will hand the floor over to Maya.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Mattia. I think I'm going to need to get sharing permission. So while that's happening, a bit about me. So my name is Maya. I'm a first-year master's student here at Mac. I'm doing my master's in chemical engineering in the Core Lab. And I did my undergrad here at Mac as well, although that was in the Department of Science. But I'm super excited to talk to you guys today. So it's a pretty quick presentation, I hope, and I hope it's useful. So I'll just get right into it. So first and foremost, what's the purpose of doing a research presentation? So a poster is really great because this acts as a visual summary of your poster. When you're giving like a PowerPoint presentation, you have a good opportunity to talk a lot about what you did, but this provides, it's kind of like an abstract for your research, but in a visual manner. This also helps to develop a lot of your scientific communication skills. Obviously, with making a poster, your written and visual communication skills, but oral communication is also vital for making your posters because you're going to be having a lot of conversations with people. And so it's kind of important to learn about how to talk about your science and your research and how to have a good dialogue with your audience. This is also a great addition to your CV. Definitely add it to your presentation section. All the posters I did in undergrad, they're all still there. So generally for your poster, you're gonna have to tailor it to your audience. So if you're presenting to a very broad audience, if it's all of engineering, you might not want to be going, for example, deep into your chemistry or deep into the physics aspect. You wanna keep it more broad. On the other hand, if you're presenting to just your research group, for example, you know what they know. They'll have a more thorough understanding of your research and the background. So in there, you can go more in depth. So it's really about knowing who you're going to be presenting to figure out what's on your poster. Before you make your poster, it's important to determine what your primary outcomes are. So think about what your research question is, what main results you want to show, and what the overall significance of your poster is. For me, I find it really helpful to plan it all out on paper before I even touch my computer. So just take a sheet of paper, figure out where all your boxes are going to go, where all your graphs and tables are going to go. And this makes it a lot easier to understand and just what information you can physically fit on your poster before you start messing around on the computer, because that's so much harder. It's also really important, especially if this is your first poster, to start early. Posters take a weird amount of work. They're very nitpicky. There's a lot of small details that you have to take care of. So it takes a lot longer than you'd expect. So it's always good to start early, especially you'll know most of your background and methods, at least, even if you don't have all your results yet. So you can start planning out those sections. It's also good to have your supervisor review your poster before you submit it. They'll obviously just want to see it, but for some of your projects, there may be confidential information that they don't want you to share. And so it's good to get their feedback and make sure they've approved it. It's also really, really good to start early because you'll want to send your poster for printing a few days before you need it. You guys will be printing a lot of posters at once, so they'll get a little overwhelmed. So it's important to give them a few days to print your poster so that you get it on time. And then last but not least, it's good to practice presenting your poster. You can do this to your lab mates, to your friends or your family, just that you're comfortable talking about your research and you gain kind of an understanding of what kind of questions you might be asked. So now in diving into the poster itself, there's a couple major sections. So at the top, you'll have a header. Then you'll go into your introduction, objectives, and any background information, your methods, results, and then your conclusions. And then at the end, your references and acknowledgements. So now I'm just going to go through each of these sections, and feel free to interrupt or put in the chat if you have any questions, or we can do that at the end. Okay, so the first step is your header. So this is where you're going to be giving the general information. You want the title of your project. Make sure that this is big and very easy to read. Try to avoid a lot of jargon, if possible, in your title. You want this to draw an audience in and not scare them away. You're also going to include the names and the affiliations of all your authors. If they come from different departments, what you can do is put superscripts next to each of the names and then label the departments accordingly. You can also make it clear who's presenting and who's first author. So here I'm first author and presenting. So I just bolded and underlined my own name. It's also good to include the McMaster logo on one side, lab logo, and if you have a collaborator, it's also nice to include their logos. And then last but not least, I would recommend putting in your contact information. So I did this when I just put my email, but you can also include things like a lab website, and I also included our lab Twitter account. So the next step is your introduction and objectives. So on this poster example, I've just called it background. You can call this whatever you want, but this will be a summary of the literature. And so this is just to help your audience understand key terms and ideas of your project and help them understand that why there is a need for your project. Your research is obviously very important and you're seeking to answer a question. So you need to be able to convince your audience why your research is kind of a step forward in whatever field you are in. This section will also include the purpose of your research, and if you have them, you can also include your hypotheses, but I know sometimes in your research you might not have one, so that's also totally fine. So the next step is your methods, and so this is where you're going to help your audience understand your experimental approach. You're going to want to include your key protocols and methodologies. I know in the lab you use probably a million different techniques. You're not going to go through them all. you're just going to highlight the main ones. And I find it really helpful to just make this into a diagram or a schematic. So this was one of my posters. This was like an antibacterial test I did. I just kind of lay out my workflow, and then when I'm talking to my audience, I find it helpful to just point at each of the steps and walk them through it. So then the main part of your poster will be your results. And so here I really recommend using graphs, tables, and images to explain your results. As we know, a picture is often worth 1,000 words, and people don't really want to read a large amount of text on your poster. They want to look at an image and then listen to you talk. I do find it helpful to include captions just in case someone doesn't feel like talking to you. They can look at your poster, look at the graph, and use your caption to understand vaguely what's happening. You want to use this section to report your key findings. I find it helpful to include different subsections because there's often a lot going on. So this is just to make it clear to your audience what results are part of your project. If you have it, you should also definitely run some statistical analysis, and this just makes your story stronger. And then last but not least, it's really important to explain the significance of your results. You don't need to put this into writing necessarily, but this is something that I think a lot of people forget to touch on. They talk about all their amazing results, but often forget to tie it back to their main idea or their main problem. And you want to really make sure your audience understands why you did these tests and why your results are so good. On the flip side, it is totally possible that you don't have many results, and that's totally fine. It was a very quick research experience, and sometimes things just don't work out. So don't stress if you're in that boat. I've also definitely made posters where I've had no results, and that's okay. In that case, there's several steps you can take. You can focus on your background information, your project objectives, and be more in depth with your methodology. You can also include details for any unsuccessful experiments. Bad results are still results. But the main thing to focus on here is talk about why these were unsuccessful, and then possible solutions for the future of what might have gone wrong and what you could do to change this. It's also great to hear, if this happens, to explain future experiments planned and the possible outcomes. The last main component of your poster will be conclusions and future work. So here you'll summarize your main research outcomes, describe your future work, and then again, state your significance of your research and where this could be applied in a real world scenario. And then last but not least, you'll want to include references. So I don't know if you saw, for example, in my introduction, I have in-text citations here, and then have a main reference list at the end. Because the poster has a very limited amount of space, you're going to want to maybe shorten these citations. So the citation method that I've used is a numerical style with all the authors, the journal, and the year, and I didn't include the title. This way, people can still find this reference if they would like to, but it's not including a very long title and taking up space. But whatever you do, just be consistent and include in-text citations for sure. It's also good to recognize funding agencies. So you may not know this, but you can definitely ask your supervisors. So for example, NSERC and the Create Control program for my case. And then it's easiest to just do this with their logos. The logos are pretty familiar for everyone, and it's just a good way of acknowledging their help. It's also important that you recognize people who've supported this research. So this could be collaborators, employers, or industry partners. So in my case, this was SteriPro. And again, I just included their logo. So this is my completed poster for one of my projects. So we'll just maybe go through this. So as you can see, I don't really have a methods and results section. What I actually did for this case was to combine my methods and results and kind of split it up based on the different sections of my project. So this is very project dependent. It might make sense for you to do this, but it might not. And so you really have to make sure to tailor your poster to your project. Looking back on this poster, I could definitely have made my figures larger, for instance, and included more white space. It is a little crammed in together, but this is just something that you'll see when you make your own poster. So now I'm just going to go through like a couple of stylistic things, what you can do, what you should maybe avoid. So things to do. The first is to ensure your poster is the correct dimensions. So sometimes you might have guidelines. If you don't, a good rule of thumb is usually 3 feet by 4 feet. And you can just change this in PowerPoint by changing the layout. It's very easy to do, but you just want to make sure that you're working on the right scale so that when it's printed, it's the right size. You also want to choose a good color scheme. So what I usually do is a light background color with dark text, usually like a very light gray with black text, and then 1 or 2 accent colors. So as you can see here, I use the Labs template, but our accent color is this maroon, and that's what works for us. And it's just 1 extra color, but everything else is gray, white, or black. It's also good to use a consistent and, of course, readable style of font. So I think use Arial most frequently, but there's also a few others that you can choose from. I would recommend don't really mix and match with your font styles. Just choose 1 font, 2 if you really want to, but generally you're okay with just choosing 1 font. And you also want to make sure your font size is legible from 2 feet away. So people won't be standing right beside your poster. They might be standing a little bit far away. And you want to make sure that everything's still readable. So on my poster here, the main text is, I think, size 36. These large headings are about size 50. And then my figure captions are size 20. And so when it's printed out, obviously it'll be bigger, but that's a good starting spot. And then you want to make sure you use clear images. When you're printing this poster, it's going to be much bigger. And if your pictures are blurry, that's really going to be noticeable on your poster. And so just make sure you take a look at that before you print it. It's also great to proofread your poster. It's good to do it multiple times and have someone else look at it. I find that PowerPoint doesn't really do a good job of proofreading. So what I like to do is copy and paste all my text into a Word document and read it there. And that just makes it easier for me personally. And then there's things that you should generally try to avoid. Don't use crazy bright colors. While they are very fun, poster is not the time to use them. You should also try to not include too much text. You don't want to be inconsistent with your font sizes or styles, or have uneven spacing or alignment between your figures. You also want to try to not use unclear or unprofessional font styles. And most importantly, try not to overcrowd your poster. If it's too crowded, people just won't want to read it, and that's really unfortunate. So I'm just gonna drink some water. All right, so here's a poster example that I found on the internet, and I think visually just looking at it, we can agree that it's not great. But I wanted to go through it in a little bit more detail. So first and foremost, they have this background image of a starry sky. And while this looks great, it's really distracting. And so this kind of takes away from the poster. And so I would recommend just having a very plain background so that the audience is more focused on your content. In terms of their text boxes, some of them are really dark. They're hard to read. They're all different colors, which is just distracting. They're also kind of arranged illogically. You don't really know what to read next. And they're also different widths, which is distracting. The title is a weird font choice. Word art is probably not the way to go for your research poster. And you want to just include text choices that are really easy to read. This is also a lot of text, so I would recommend trying to do your best to include figures where possible. And this also makes it easier to engage with your audience because you can point to figure, and then talk them through each of the steps. Also, you don't need to include an abstract on your poster. Your poster is basically an abstract of your project, so the abstract is kind of redundant. So here's a poster that has a pretty good layout. It's pretty logical. It has clear sections. You know how to read it. There's also a minimal amount of words, and they've focused on the images. A couple of things that I would say is that they should have included some figure captions, especially if people don't really want to talk to you, they just want to look at your poster. Figure captions would be really helpful. It would also be good to kind of save space by not using bullet points, but that is personal preference. Okay, so now the actual creation of your poster. There's a lot of different ways you could do this. I prefer using PowerPoint, but I know people also use Canva. There's also, if you Google McMaster brand resources, there is a poster template that you can use, or ask around in your lab. They probably have a template already. Mine that you saw was the Hort Lab template. And I know lots of different labs have their own, so just ask around. You can also get images and icons from FreePic, Flat Icon, or PowerPoint. And these are some tools for making scientific drawings. So there's BioRender, which has a lot of free diagrams that you can use for making like your methods section, ChemDraw for making chemicals, and there's also MolView and Smart SurView. And then I just included a link of some examples of good posters. I think I've sent the slides, so you'll probably have those shared with you so you can take a look at those. And then, so there's a lot of options to print your posters. The Chemistry and Chemical Biology has a printing service here at Mac. The link is on the screen. There's also media production services at Mac, although I'm not sure if they're open during the summer, or you can just go to Staples and get this printed. But I would definitely recommend don't leave this till the last minute. I know the Chemistry and Chemical Biology definitely ask for a couple business days in advance for you to send them your poster, and then they'll print it for you. And so last but not least, when you're giving your research poster, you're going to be talking to your audience. So I would recommend having an elevator pitch for your poster. So 3 to 5 minute summary of your research. So background, your main objective, your main results, and then the significance of your results. Try not to read off of your poster. As I mentioned, you really use your figures here. Just gesture at them and kind of walk your audience through the figures. And then this will be a great way of having them understand the main ideas of your work. You also really want to engage with the audience. These poster sessions are a great way to network because you really do get that one-on-one time with people, as opposed to when you're giving like a PowerPoint. So people kind of approach poster sessions differently. Some may want to hear your 5-minute elevator pitch and then ask you a question at the end, but some people just want to have a conversation with you. So they might start off by asking you to give ask you to give your pitch, but they might interrupt you halfway through with a question. That's totally okay. Answer their question, have a conversation about it if they want, and then you can go back and finish your pitch. And obviously, this is your research. You should be very excited about it. You've worked really hard. So just remember to be enthusiastic. If you are, then whoever is listening to you will also be enthusiastic. And just generally good presentation etiquette, like make good eye contact, speak at a good volume, and don't be rude to people. So yeah, that's about it. I'm happy to take any questions now, or my email is on the screen. Feel free to email me if you have any other questions.
Thank you, Maya. That was fantastic. If anybody has any questions, you can ask them now, or I can do my printing spiel and we can ask them all at the end. Yes, I will put the slides in our link tree on our Instagram. It's at McMasterCert. So everything is posted there. All of our events, all of our announcements can be found there. I know these slides were pretty great. I think they had pretty much everything you guys need to make it. We will be sharing a poster template with all of you either tonight or tomorrow. It will be emailed to everyone. That is the standard for our poster showcase. It has the dimensions built in as well, because we are pretty specific about those. Okay, how do you print a poster? I'll share my print slides and then we can do everything at the end. I feel like that's easier because printing is kind of annoying. Okay. So essentially, if anybody's had any classes where they've had to print a poster, it's basically the same thing. You can either print it through us, which I highly recommend. It makes the process much easier. We handle all the printing. We bring it to the poster showcase. That's what I did. It saved a lot of time and a lot of effort. So I will share the information about that now. So essentially, as Maya said, don't leave it until the last minute. You can print it through us. To do that, you're going to have to email it to us at maxert@mcmaster.ca by 11:59 on Tuesday, August 8th. So you do have a little bit over a week. You will put it off. I put it off for a very long time and it was kind of annoying to get it done. But honestly, the sooner you can get it done, the better. Once the template shared with you, it's basically just filling in information. I do recommend that you stray as far away from the template as possible. I know last year every other poster looked exactly the same, because we had like the maroon background with the white lettering, and which is fine. It worked. All the information was there. But I know that the people who did kind of make their poster a little bit different really stood out, which was great because there are a lot of professors there and other students who like to see something different. Another thing I will say about the poster showcase is if you have some sort of visual aid that goes with your project. So I know some people had like remote controlled cars, or you have solar cells, or you have a circuit that kind of goes in with your project. We do encourage that you bring those to the showcase as well. We have tables set up to go beside your poster so that you can kind of do a demonstration that goes along with your project. If you have like human cells or anything ammonia based or anything that is a biohazard, please use your judgment on that. Do not bring cancer cells to the poster showcase. You won't be allowed to, and it's not a good idea. So obviously, if you're dealing with something that's a biohazard, that does not apply. But anything that is small, that would fit, that would help, feel free to bring it. So that poster template will be shared with you today or tomorrow. It does need to be 24 inches by 36 inches. So if you are choosing to print it by yourself, make sure that it fits that size. We are ordering or renting poster boards, and we're going to be putting 2 on each board. So it does need to fit. If it's bigger than that, we won't turn you away, but it's going to be really annoying to organize where you are going to be put. So please make sure it's 24 inches by 36. If you print through us, we'll bring it to JHE on the day of the showcase. And we are looking at either fully or partially subsidizing those poster prints. So if you can get it in by next week, it will be cheaper than if you print it all by yourself. So I highly, highly, highly recommend doing that. And again, you will be getting a template regardless. Final details. Thank you, Maya. That was fantastic. We will be having some poster office hours next week. The date and time is to be determined, but we will post it on our Instagram as soon as we know. So make sure you come out to that. If you have your poster ready for the date next week, we'll try to make it later in the week to give you a little bit more time. You can come in and get feedback from some of our executive team who has done this before, or one of our grad students. So keep your eyes out for that. And again, we'll be recording the event and posting it on our YouTube channel at McMaster Society for Engineer 2333, or you can find that through the link tree in our Instagram bio as well. And I think that's it from me. One last thing. We have a research social next week, or this week, sorry, August 2nd. Date and time also to be determined, but it will be on our Instagram. So that is also coming your way. I know that was a lot of information that I just dumped on all of you, but the recording will be posted. The slides will be sent out. In the meantime, if you have any questions for me or Maya, please let me know, and we can try to answer them quickly before we hop off the call. Or I can't see the chat.
I do have one thing to add. You mentioned don't bring your cells, which is a great idea. But I've seen in some posters, which I think is a really neat idea, is if they have a video that they want to share, you can put a QR code somewhere on your poster and just have them scan it and take you to a YouTube video. And that's a really great way of also showing your results.
I'm just seeing this in the chat. Do you have a sample posters of a PDF? I can also include that in the email that I sent out with the poster template. That is a great point. The required 7 dimensions, I mentioned that. I'm gonna print a poster. Either us or Staples. I don't know if the Underground in Musk is open right now. I think it might be. Another question that we get a lot is, how do I know what to put on my poster? I know when I did research, I had a bunch of small projects that I was doing, but nothing that was really like big enough or cohesive enough to be on one poster. So honestly, just pick something and go with it. If it's something that you can get pictures of, or something that you know enough about to put on a poster, just stick with it. You can always find other sources to kind of support a hypothesis that you have. You don't need like concrete results. I know that the poster that I did last summer wasn't even really one of my biggest projects. It was just kind of something I knew a lot about. And I had the physical evidence to support it. So that was what I went with. It doesn't need to be perfect. You're not getting your master's on this. It's just kind of a fun way to show what you've been learning and prove that you've been doing work and not just hanging out in the lab, which is also fine. Are there any other questions before we end the call? No. Okay. One last reminder. If you haven't registered for the poster showcase, the deadline was today. So you are too late. But you can email Samuel. I'll put his email in the chat. I know that we are kind of at capacity right now. So if you want to be in the poster showcase, email him like right after this and we'll see if we can squeeze you in. Let me just find his email and I'll put it in here. If you have registered and you've gotten confirmation from him, even better, you're good to go. We will be in touch with all of you in the next few weeks with more updates. But again, you have access to this recording. You can email me if you have any questions at the Maxert email. And Samuel is also a great resource if you have just general questions about your research term or your poster or anything like that. Okay, I'm gonna copy his email. You should all have it because if you're doing research, you've definitely gotten emails from him before. But I will put it in the chat anyways. It is there. Are you responsible for paying for the poster if we send it before August 8th? So we're still organizing the logistics of finances. If you do it through us, you will at least be partially funded. So right now the cost for printing with us is $20 each, which is already cheaper than it would be at Staples or the Underground. But we are looking at fully subsidizing them. I can't make any promises because we haven't figured that out yet, but you will at least be partially subsidized. And I will also put that in the email that I send out either today or tomorrow. I'll get an answer for that tonight. Else? Okay. I think that's it. Again, if you have any questions, let me know. DM us, email us, message me on Teams. Yeah. Okay. Bye, guys.